Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, you can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, folks, welcome to one more edition of Politics Done Right. I'm Egberto Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being here with us. Before I even get started, you guys know where I'm going. If you're a frequent listener, the first thing that I ask all of you that are listening right now, all of you that are coming onto the show right now, is to please go ahead and share this on your Facebook page. Share this over Twitter, share this over Tumblr, share this over every single area that you have the wherewithal to do so, because that is the way we are going to make a difference in this plutocracy. That is the way we are going to make a difference in a system that doesn't allow us to get the type of throughput that we must have in a system where we are unable to get the coverage that is required. Right now, I'm trying to bring up the program on my pad here, but what's interesting enough is leaving the pad in the bag is not a good thing, because it was completely without charge, and now it is incumbent on me to make sure that I charge it. Anyhow, folks, this is going to be a good show today. We are going to talk about what has occurred. I mean, let me tell you, I had no idea what the show was going to be about today. Folks, if you're just joining us, please go ahead and share this program right now on your wall in Facebook and everywhere else. But like I was saying, I wasn't sure what I was going to be talking about today because, again, I thought about bringing in a guest with that progressive program that they had out there in I think it was Virginia, where they brought in over 500 progressive candidates. But then I saw a notice that ran across my Twitter feed, and it said Goldman Sachs had a huge profit, 27% above the huge profit they had already expected. And you listen to that and you start to say, wait a minute, there's something wrong there. Especially in our economy. There is something wrong there. And then I kept on reading exactly what occurred with the company, how they made that money. Then I had to say, you know what? It is time for us to... what we have to start doing, first of all, is talking to people. Because before it is not yet enough to just tell people, oh, that is bad, and you have to, do something else. You have to first explain to them that things doesn't have to be that way. And the problem is a whole lot of people don't quite get it yet. A whole lot of people still believe, they're still of the belief that things have to be the way that they are right now. And it is incumbent upon us, progressive, independent progressive media, to let people know that things do not have to be the way that they are right now. And not only do they not have to be the way that they are right now, but that people have the ability, we ultimately have the ability to change things. And that is what many folks don't quite yet realize, many folks not yet quite believe, and that is our job. That is our job. It is our job as progressives, those of you who are activists, to do the job of making that sale. For those of you that are, you don't quite want to be activists, but you know that there's something wrong. It is something that listening to programs like Politics Done Right can give you the impetus, can give you some of the talking points, can give you some of the background that allows you to go out there to your friends and your family to say, look, things doesn't have to be that way. And by the way, the reason they are this way is that all our lives, this is what we've learned. All our lives, we've learned that somehow you have to have those guys there at the top, and absent those guys on the top, you can't move forward. We are here. All our lives, we have to be learned. All our lives, sorry about that, guys. Somehow we have to back up those guys there. Okay, be quiet now. Okay, there we go. All right. What we have to do is we have to make sure and be able to tell the narrative, be able to explain it concisely, be able to do it in a manner that doesn't seem like we're just trying to blow up the system, which we're not trying to do. We're just trying to make a system that is equitable. We're trying to make a system that is, there's a special word that I can't recall right now. But anyhow, good things have started to happen. Starbucks decided that it's going to close 8,000 stores on Sunday. I think it's May 29th. And the reason they're going to do that is they're going to talk about implicit bias, racial bias training. I've heard some interviews where a lot of people say, oh, that is just PR. Yes, it is PR. I mean, I don't have a problem with Starbucks trying to do some good PR, especially if that PR is going to result in bringing an awareness to people that they should treat everybody equally, everybody well. Everybody should have the same equal treatment at every particular Starbucks around the country. So yes, it's a PR move, but also it's a necessary move, and it's a move I think that will educate a lot of people. There are a lot of people that genuinely do not understand implicit bias, that they see me, they get scared, even though I have no intentions of harming anybody ever, but they see somebody else who may harm them that looks like them, and because of implicit bias, they don't give me a pass, they give that person a pass, they get hurt. So, I mean, implicit bias is a real thing, and it doesn't only hurt black folk, it hurts everybody. So, learning that's a very good thing. Sadly, there was a Southwest airline. For those of you who are just coming in, please go ahead and share this on your wall. This is a progressive program, and I can assure you that today we have some good stuff to cover and some good information that we're going to put out there as far as not only tell you the problem, starting with the Goldman Sachs and how Goldman Sachs has been enriching itself on our backs, but also we're going to talk about what we can do. And what I'm going to hope is that some of you are going to call in with ideas or call in with questions at 646-716-5812. Again, if you're just joining us, please, I don't care if you're going to stay with us for 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, the entire hour. Please go ahead and share this on your wall. You can always go back to it. This is so important. This is so important that we go ahead and start educating ourselves on these particular issues. Before I even get started with the program, I also want to make an ask. I'll make the ask 3 times in this program. Now, somewhere in the middle and at the end of the program, I'd like to ask you guys to consider becoming a Patreon of Politics Done Right. Again, this is a progressive show. Our intentions are to interview quite a few of the progressive candidates, give progressive candidates that otherwise would not have a voice, and also give a whole lot of knowledge over progressive issues and how we can move that forward within our communities, not just here in Texas, but throughout Texas, California, Oklahoma, Arkansas. We have listeners all over the place, and more importantly, also in as much as most of our listeners, or a large percentage of our listeners, are progressives, we have a whole lot of conservative listeners. And interestingly enough, many of them send me emails in the background letting me know, look, I'm a conservative guy, but I really like to hear what you have to say, because you're not coming across that you hate us. You're coming across that you want things better for all of us. We have different ways of getting there. And I've even had quite a few conservative converts on this show, some who've done it pretty much on air. So again, folks, please give us a call at 646-716-5812. After the blog of the week, we will talk with you. Please consider becoming a patron again. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. Again, that is at patreon.com/politicsdoneright, patreon/politicsdoneright. We need several hundred patrons to really keep this program humming and to allow us to do the things that we need to do when we have to get out of town and talk to a progressive throughout the country. We really, really need your support, and hope that just like the right gets support wholeheartedly from their people, I am asking that you guys support us as well. It is so important that we get your support on these types of programs. Absent that, the slide continues. Anyway, what's the program going to be about today? The title is Explosive Profits at Goldman Sachs While Trump Robbed You Blind. Explosive Profits at Goldman Sachs While Trump Robbed You Blind. Please go ahead, folks, if you're just joining us, share us on Facebook, your wall, your page, on Twitter, on Tumblr, on everywhere else that you can. All right. The subtitle of the show, actually the title of the show is Goldman Sachs, Republicans, and Trump Screwed Us All. It is time to fight back. Yeah, that's the title. And the subtitle, that Goldman Sachs pilfer that their political puppets orchestrate, not surprising. All right? Wait a minute. Forgot a comma in there, but I'll fix it up on the way out. It's kind of sort of misleading the way it's written. But anyhow, those of us who follow politics should not have been surprised by the report today that Goldman Sachs did not only blow through its profit forecast, but that it did it by 27%. 27%, folks. After all, we know Trump and the Republicans designed their tax cut scam to do just that, transfer the wealth of the masses to their few wealthy benefactors. I mean, after all, they get money. Do they get money? These guys perform for them. We tell you that over and over again. Paul Krugman, Robert Reich, and Ali Velshi. Let me tell you who they are. Paul Krugman is an economist who works for the New York Times, very good economist. We also have Robert Reich, who used to be President Bill Clinton's labor secretary. I've interviewed him several times. And we also have Ali Velshi, who is the MSNBC's journalist, but he's a business journalist, and he's very, very good at what he does. Over several months, they have attempted to enlighten Americans to the scam. For the most part, they were successful after all. But you see, the evil bunch in Congress knew they needed Trump's right hand to execute the evil deed. Yeah, we have that right hand. We just need to hurry up and get this stuff passed, and that is exactly what they did. They hurried up and got it passed. They had no concern about what Americans wanted or what was best for them. They knew they were going to abandon the ship before the pitchforks came out. Even their Ayn Randian leader, Ayn Rand was that objectivismist who believed that stuff about lifting yourself by your bootstrap. But of course, on her deathbed, she was on Social Security. So much for your bootstraps. They had no concern about what Americans wanted or what was best for them. They knew they were going to abandon the ship before the pitchforks come out. Even their Ayn Randian leader, the Speaker of the House, Paul Rand, has thrown in the towel. Misión Cumplida. Mission accomplished. Misión Cumplida para mis latinos que me están escuchando ahora. Okay. In the news feed, before we get to the blog of the week, interesting one, Common Dreams. We're talking, it's tax day. Today is the day that you turn in your taxes. This is from Common Dreams, and I have the link in the blog post again, and it says the following. While President Donald Trump used tax day as an opportunity to declare that ordinary Americans are now winning thanks to his deeply unpopular corporate-friendly law, a new report published Tuesday refuted Trump's rosy depiction of the U.S. economy under his leadership and found that thanks to the Trump GOP tax cuts for wealthy, healthcare, education, and other necessary public services face a grim future. Conducted by Americans for Tax Fairness in partnership with Healthcare for America Now, the new analysis show that Trump and the Republican Party are moving to make up the nearly $2 trillion crater. Their tax law is expected to blow in the federal budget deficit by pursuing crippling cuts to programs that millions of Americans rely on for survival. Before I go any further, I want to remind mostly the Trump voter, because I think most of the voters that didn't vote for Trump are quite cognizant of this, or in their vote they know this. Most of the aid that will be cut by the Republicans will be cut in red states. And why is that the case? Because red states, as I've written several times on several of my blogs at egbertowillies.com, red states are welfare states in the aggregate. Most of the red states, they take more from the federal government than the federal government takes from them in taxes. In other words, we are moving monies from the blue states to the red states. The red states are generally the takers. Texas is a break-even state because it's so big, so many military bases and some other factors. But even Texas, as a quasi-red state, it's a deep red state if you take a look at its politics, something that we're going to change. But once it's changed, I can guarantee you that it'll no longer be a quasi break-even state, but it's going to have the same behavior as the blue states, and that is it'll take less money than it puts out. But it is important for all those that are listening to me who are conservatives who live in red states to understand that. The people that will suffer the most are the people in your states. Again, I repeat, the people that will suffer the most are the people in your states. Do not make any bones or think any differently. This is very important for me to tell you guys again. I want you to understand this, folks. Red states, you are the ones that are going to take the brunt of what Paul Ryan and Donald Trump has done or have done to the budget and the cuts that they will have to make. Now, let me tell you, for those of you who think in those red states, a lot of you think, well, it's those poor people in our red states that make us look like we are somehow takers. Well, guess what? Yes, you can accuse the poor folks and all these people. Remember one thing. When those poor folks don't get those dollars from the federal government, the rich guy who owns the store, the rich guy who sells the gas, the rich guy who bakes the bread, the rich guy who does all these things, for these people who were on the government dole, that's how you like to say it, for these people who are on the government dole, those monies are no longer coming to you. So if you think not giving monies from the government to the poor people that you created by having lousy policies within your states will only affect those poor people in your states that you don't like anyway, remember, those same poor people in those states buy from you. They come to you for their health care. They come to you for their groceries. They come to you for their gas. They come to you for their services. So when the government stop taking monies or stop giving more money to those folks, you will suffer as well. Your state will suffer as well. The economy of your states will be yet further depressed. Kansas should be your example. Kansas should be your example. But anyhow, so it is important for us to know that. Folks, please remember to follow Egberto Willies on Twitter, and also go ahead and like our page, Politics Done Right with Egberto Willies on Facebook. Please like that page so that we can get to you quicker, sooner, etc., etc., etc. But for you who listen to the show all the time, you know what time it is. And for you that are new, first, before I go to the blog of the week, I ask you to please share the show now on your wall. Please share the show now so that we can get Facebook's algorithm to start regularly putting it through these walls. Blog of the week.
It's time for the weekly blog post.
Okay, we're back. We are back. All right, the blog of the week is titled Explosive Profits at Goldman Sachs While Trump Robbed You Blind. Okay, folks, here it goes. I hope Americans, the ones who support those who pass policies that allow those who perform the least to profit off your labor and intellect, are watching. Goldman Sachs profits exploded by 27% and way over expectations. In the process, they have built nothing nor made anything better for the Americans at all. So why is that profit deserved again? Why is that profit justified? Folks, the titans of finance brainwashed Americans into believing they deserve the profits and wealth we impart to them for dubious claims of being the necessary part of our economy. Let's do some quick and easy numbers that illustrate a system that does not reward real work and intellect, but instead making money from moving paper and money around. Remember, that is the business Goldman Sachs is in most of the time. They make nothing, they create nothing, they have no intellect. What they do is they make money from moving money, and they make money from paper. They produce no product of real value or service that a public bank could not do at a fraction of a cost. Check out one of the Dakotas where they do have public banks that can do everything an investment bank does. And for the things that they can't do, in a real economy, it doesn't need to be done. It's only being done so that a few people can make a whole lot of money. Here it goes now. This quarter alone, Goldman Sachs pulled in $10.04 billion in revenues. They have 36,600 employees. So that is just over $274,000 per employee in income. Wow. For a company that produces nothing to have I'm talking about productivity, man. To have each employee generate $274,000 in income. Wow, that's huge. Of that, they had $221 billion in earnings. So what is earnings? Earnings is what's left after you pay employees, expenses, and all that good stuff. You can call, and let's, for example's sake, just call earnings profits, okay? So they had $2.21 billion in profits. That is over $60,000 per employee. But remember, this is after they pay the salaries, investment banker bonuses, and expenses of the employees. So after the investment bankers and brokers get their $1 million bonuses, who partakes of the $221 billion spoils? You guessed it. The folks who could afford to buy their stocks. The folks who could afford to buy their stocks. You can bet that most of the 36,600 employees are not high-level employees. And let me tell you, there was a typo earlier in this blog of the week, and I got a caller. There's somebody who actually went to the website and found the website's telephone number and called and say, "Hey, I have 2 typos that I need to report in your blog. There's a comma that's missing, and there is an extra word that you forgot to remove." And that caller called in and said, by the way, I used to work for Goldman Sachs. And I can tell you, you're absolutely right. Most of us make very little money at Goldman Sachs, and the people who make those monies are the investment bankers, the brokers, and those guys that get the big fat bonuses. So the folks who could afford to buy their stocks are the ones who are making all the money from the earnings after all these folks have been paid. You can bet that most of the 36,600 employees are not high-level employees. That they are there means the company needs them, though. You would think more than $60,000 per employee could go to them, the ones working. More of the $60,000, how comes more of the $60,000 never made it to those employees? How comes they didn't say, okay, well, let's give the employees a little bit more, since absent those employees, we would not have had that $60,000 per employee profit. You know? That is not how they designed this economic system, though. That is not how they teach them in business school to operate. They don't teach them morality. They don't teach them that, look, if all these people are working there and you are able to make this kind of money, that really means that they made that money. And you know what? Giving all that money to those things called investors who are sitting down at their pool or sitting down at an office just waiting to collect on that dividend for letting your money sit, that is just an interesting aberration of a system that has been told that you've been told somehow is great. It is great. Do remember that only 20% of people control more than 90-something% of all capital investments, okay? So when they say, oh, but that could be you, that could be your retirement fund, etc., 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 it applies to very few people. Most people don't even have retirements. Most people, you may talk about the police officers, you may talk about the firemen and so forth, that some of these monies are invested in some of these type of instruments, but most of them are in simple bonds because they have to make sure that they're not going to lose their shirts. Continuing. Many of the plutocracy talk about makers and takers. They love to talk about makers and takers. These are the makers, and these are the takers. They are just takers, folks. They are just takers. Now, really, they are just takers, eh? They are just takers. They're just takers. Many plutocracy talk about makers and takers. It is all about how we define these terms. Read clearly, my friends. Investment bankers produce nothing of value to you. Many of those takers, the ones who make so little that they pay a little to no income taxes, are the ones responsible for Goldman Sachs and the other titans of finance to thrive. They do not pay those takers enough for them to pay income taxes. They are effectively stealing their labors and capitalizing it as their profits. In other words, they're paying these folks very little and at the same time capitalizing on the little that they're paying them, and somehow, that is okay. That is really, really okay. That's how they see it. That is okay. That is okay. All right. When a company underpays an employee, the profit margins increase. That increased profit margin makes the shares of the company more valuable. That underpaid employee takes more from the public sector, food stamps, healthcare, etc. Working middle class America pays the lion's share of that social burden with their taxes. So in other words, they pay these people a little bit of money, just a little bit of money. The little bit of money that these people make don't allow them to live their full lives, so they can't pay a whole lot of taxes. The people that paid them a little bit of money complain that they don't pay a lot of taxes, all right? And at the same time that they don't pay a lot of taxes, these guys are the ones telling the politicians, even though these guys are not paying taxes, cut taxes for us, those of us who are paying taxes, which leaves the coffers empty and create deficit spending. And that deficit spending then creates a new burden, this new burden on the middle class. And the middle class is, well, let me finish I'll go into that when I'm done with the blog of the week. It did not help that Donald Trump and the Republicans' tax cut scam puts even more of the burden on working middle class Americans. Those who get their incomes from work pay up to 37% of that in taxes. 37% of that in taxes. The wealthy investor pay between 15 to 23.8% for just profiting from the labor and intellect of those who will pay up to 37% in taxes. In other words, the whole system is rigged, and it's rigged so that those who do the least, the investors, they profit from the labor of those who ultimately will pay a higher tax rate than the investor. Please tell me, how is that equitable? How is that egalitarian? How is that good for society? And isn't it true that by that nature, what really occurs is a whole lot of people make a whole lot of money taking it away from the masses, because the masses aren't the ones who have that. Folks, if you're just getting into the program, please go ahead and share this on your wall. We had a mishap where we had to requeue the program and lost quite a few of our listeners in the process, but go ahead and requeue, please. Tax cut scam failed. Repatriating offshore profits only helped the rich. Repatriating offshore profits only helped the rich. And if you believe the Trump Republican tax cut scam was of any help to the middle class, here is the reality. And this is what was said at CNBC. Recent tax legislation, which lowered the corporate tax rate from 35% to 21%, also helped results. Goldman said its effective tax rate for the first quarter was 17.2%. In other words, even though the corporate rate was lowered from 35 to 21%, Goldman Sachs, a company awash in money, free money, because remember, they produce nothing, they have no value, they have no intellect for producing anything of value to the average American citizen. So they are just a money machine, something that generates income, something that just generates a whole bunch of cash. And they don't even pay the 21% that is the corporate rate right now. They paid this last quarter only 17.2%. Folks, if you're just joining us, please share this program on your feed, on your wall, so that others will get a chance to see it. Look, folks, Paul Krugman proved economists were right all along. Trump's tax cut scam, allowing companies to bring their offshore loot to the U.S., did not work as advertised. But we knew it wasn't going to work as advertised. We knew that. The reduced rates did not go to employ people or increase salaries. These lowly tax profits went into stock buybacks, expanding the wealth of the already wealthy. And this is something all the economists were talking about. They said that is exactly what would happen. You're going to allow these guys to bring their monies that they put offshore to avoid taxes, with the expectation that at some time some Republican puppet is going to come into the government and allow them to bring that money back at a very, very reduced tax rate, at which point all they're going to do is buy back their stocks and make the value of their stocks much higher. They have no reason to employ more people. Americans are not making enough money to buy more stuff. So you don't have to hire more people if there are no more people buying stuff. And that is what people don't understand. Oh, they're going to bring that money back into America, and when they bring that money back into America, they're going to invest and create more jobs. For what reason will they create jobs if they're not the people there to support the products that would be created from those jobs that they're talking about created? Which come first? That is why supply side economics never works. You have to have demand. If you really want to see demand, don't give tax break to rich people. Give tax breaks and redistribute the excess capital and what I call the unearned capital. Invest the unearned capital in those who will spend it. And you don't have to do it by saying, I'm going to give every American a check who doesn't work for that check. You can tell Americans, you can do this by having incentives. Oh, we are going to work on infrastructure, collect more taxes, create more jobs. That makes a robust economy. It's not like giving away money and saying redistribution doesn't mean, taking $10 from that rich guy and giving it to that poor guy who isn't doing any work. That's not what redistribution means. Redistribution means those that are getting excess monies because of the aberration within capitalism, you move that money into areas that make sense. Okay? We have a whole lot of bridges that need to be rebuilt. Rebuild the bridges with the extra taxes you collect from the wealthy. When those bridges are being rebuilt, they had to hire more people. They had to buy more supplies. When they hire more people, those people are going to go to the sandwich shops. Those people are going to go buy clothes. Those people are going to go to the movies. Those people are going to do all these things. They're going to spend the money, and that money is going to circulate over and over again, because when more tickets are sold at the counter at that movie theater, they're going to buy more popcorn. They're going to go to the farmer and buy more corn. That farmer is going to go to Monsanto and buy more seeds. I mean, it's the demand side that you have to stimulate, not the supply side. The supply side is a selfish iteration intent on keeping the economy fairly slow so that a few can do well in a steady manner. You go ahead and you start having people working and wanting stuff. Somehow the wealthy isn't as wealthy anymore, but those below are or living a much better existence. And that is what we're talking about. Anyhow, folks, America's indoctrination must end. Our infrastructure is dilapidated. Healthcare continues to sap our wealth as corporations find more ingenious ways to charge us more to keep their growth rate up for shareholders. It is time for us to redefine who the real takers are. Folks, when you hear takers and makers, what I want you to stop doing is I want you to stop looking at your neighbor as the taker. Nobody who has a job in this economy should ever be considered a taker. Nobody. Absolutely nobody who has a job is a taker. Now, if you have somebody who says, oh, I have my investments working for me, then it's their investments that are working and not them. Okay? Think about that. We have to have a different paradigm in our thought process. We have been indoctrinated by a plutocracy that tells us who we should consider worthy of earning, who we should consider worthy of having wealth, who we should consider worthy of employment, or what types of employment is considered more worthy than the others. What I've contended all along is that if we want to find a worthy employment, the most worthy of them all, we know doctors are so well needed because, again, they save lives. But one of the most worthy employments, one of the most worthy professions is teachers. Some of the people that are most maligned in this country, teachers. I said I was going to talk about teachers every single day of these programs. And the reason why is that I think the teachers are going to be the catalyst, the next catalyst of the labor movement. And if you're a teacher that is listening to me right now, if you're teachers that are listening to me right now, I'd love to tell you, you go guys, get on the front of the line. You guys go ahead and start that revolution, start that labor revolution, because you are the most maligned folks we have in this country. And for those teachers who consider themselves conservatives right now, it is time for you to do a check on who you are. It is time for you to do a check on your dignity. It is time for you to do a check on your self-worth, because if you've bought into the conservative mantra that says your worth is not much, there is a problem there. And that is what they've said. They've cut your pay. They've made it that you are no longer the bastion of our society. Back where I'm from in Panama, Central America, one of the most important professions is teaching. You see a teacher in the grocery store, it is like la licenciada. You see a teacher back then, the respect that we held for them, it was that you could not respect a teacher. Before I go any further, I have quite a bit to talk about. Let me go ahead and go read my. Here we go. I lost it for a minute. Let's go ahead and go to the. I have. It's funny because what we have now is I have two different things that I have to read, right? Because we had to re-queue the program. So let me go ahead and see what we have on the network right now. All right, let's see. We have, bear with me one second. We have in our feed, come on, Facebook. Sometimes this stuff just drives you crazy. It's like, why is it taking so long to queue up? Why is it taking so long? We have very fast internet here, 50 megabytes down and 200 megabytes. 20 megabytes down and 200 megabytes up. Megabits, that is, up. You'd wonder, why are you taking so long? Well, let me see if I can read it from the screen. Let's see. Bill McLeod said, exactly, money needs to go to the pockets of the middle class by work. Yes, fix our bridges, exactly. Yeah, Bill, one of the things, when a lot of progressives talk about redistribution, the first thing a lot of people think is they think we're talking about a rich person writing a whole lot of checks to the government, and somehow later the government is going to write a check to that lousy guy who can work and doesn't want a job. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about redistribution. When we talk about redistribution, we talk about collecting money, that excess money, what I call unearned capital from many on the top, and put that into services like education. Make sure that we can get K through college free. That is something that we should aspire to. And that is an investment. Not only by, that rich person can think that they did it all on their own, but I've sent the investment that all of America's made in the educational system. They would not have been able to have the capital that they themselves, the corporatists have. So, yes, that is so true. We have, let's see, Bruce Pillard. Hey, Bruce, what's going on? If they paid us workers more, we could pay more taxes. And that is what I was saying in the blog of the week. These guys get it in three ends, right? Especially the ones that just got to repatriate their monies. Here's the deal. They pay very little money to the employees. In paying very little money to the employees many times have to get food stamps or have to get Obamacare at a reduced rate, which means their healthcare subsidized. When you say subsidized healthcare, it means those of us in the middle class are subsidizing that healthcare. We are paying a piece of that healthcare, so it's a tax. They don't tell you it's a tax. So the employer pays, like Walmart pays a very small salary. After they pay that small salary, that employee to survive must get support from the government. But who is the government? We the people. Therefore, it comes out of our taxes, which means we get deficit spending, okay? So how is the deficit spending mitigated? Oh, we borrow money. But you can't borrow money from the poor people or the middle class that are strapped because they don't have the money to give. So we go to the rich people. So we give the rich people, meaning the wealthy investors, etc., a tax break. So we cut their taxes, which created the deficit. Then we go borrow the money from them to pay for the deficit. And after we borrow the money, we have to then give them some more money called interest on the debt. So they get monies from the tax break. They get money from us for paying the interest. And for those who own stocks in companies that had their monies parked overseas, they got another set of income. How did they get that income? When that money came back into the United States, the company bought back the stocks, and in buying back those stocks, what happened to those stocks? They appreciated in value. So there were capital gains. But here's the kicker with the capital gains. Whereas if it was straight out dividends, those guys would be responsible for regular, on most dividends, from paying the regular up to 37% tax rates. But they got another break yet again. Because when the company buys back the stock as opposed to giving them the money as dividends, the stock increases in value. And that increase in value when sold, they don't pay 37%. They pay 15 to 23%. So folks, the system is so rigged. It is so rigged that there is no way for the average American citizen to make it. And that is why November is so important. That is why November election is so important. And I'm not talking about about electing establishment Democrats either, because they're better philosophically. They're better based on our platform. They're better because they at least won't let you starve. But they've allowed this type of economy to occur. They have allowed a capitalist system of this nature that bleeds the average middle class person, that ensures the average middle class person just cannot make it. You get a raise, and that entire raise goes toward the increase in price of your health care. You get a raise again, it goes towards your health care. In other words, you never stop swimming. You never stop trying to tread water. You're constantly trying to get ahead. That can actually change. And how do we change that? Before we can change government, before we can change those that get elected, we have to change in our own minds. And I mean this. This is important for you to understand. Before this change can occur, you have to change in your own mind. You see, when I say things like, we have to redistribute from those who have all this unearned income, the first thing a whole lot of people are going to try to tell you is, don't listen to that guy because what he's talking about is socialism. I don't care what the hell you want to call it. What I'm calling about is being fair to everybody. I'm not talking about getting rid of free enterprise or anything like that. I'm not even talking about getting rid of capitalism. I'm just saying, let's do whatever is necessary to ensure that money is redistributed equitably and where it belongs. Like I use Goldman Sachs as the poster persons today, because none of the money earned by Goldman Sachs, those millions that those guys get in bonuses, are undeserved. Yes, I will say it. They are undeserved. They did nothing with their hands. They did nothing with their intellect. They may have bought a company, and the overflow on that company gave them several $1 million. And in the process, they may have cost a whole lot of people their jobs. These are professions that do nothing for you. These are professions that make no money for you, make no money for America. And until we understand that in our mind, we have to first understand that in our minds so that people won't necessarily get you scared about, well, that is just how it is supposed to be. An economic system is human-made, and we can tailor an economic system that supports everybody and that also supports innovation, and that's a free enterprise system that gives you the unlimited ability to innovate. But it's not what we have right now. What we have right now by design is, the best evidence is simply what's occurring. The best evidence of our system is the state of our economy. Our economy, if you look on paper, is booming. Our economy is making a ton of money if you look on paper. But how is that money distributed tells a different story. It tells a story of most people in poverty or struggling. Most people in this country are in poverty or struggling. I don't care what kind of neighborhood you live in, even in a rich neighborhood, even some of those rich people, Well, that's not true. Not the one percenters, but the others. I live in an upper middle class community. I can guarantee you one thing. If I look left and right, I can find folks that are struggling. The one thing that we do very well in this country is that we struggle in silence. There are a whole lot of people that are struggling in silence. So what we're trying to say here, folks, is simple. There is a better way, and it is time for us to start thinking about the other way. And it starts, first of all, in November by making sure we all go to vote. And not that we all go to vote, but also making sure that we are supporting candidates that are malleable to these types of thoughts. But before we even do that, all of us have to be out there on a enlightenment tour, if you will, letting folks know how the system really works, making sure that they're not afraid of how the system works, because it is a fear that people have of what's next that prevent them from changing what's now. Remember that. People are generally scared of what they don't know or they don't understand. So if we can make them understand now, when we have to make the change, when we have to say we are going to make sure and tax the way we should be taxing, that is when the change occurs. Let's see if I have any thoughts here on the website, rather on the page. But I'm so sorry that we had the technical difficulties. Every so often that happens with Facebook. It's not, the funny thing about it is that we don't have any control over that. I think it's a server at this place. Okay, let's see. I don't see any other. Let's go ahead and see if we have any other topics that folks want to discuss here before we close down. We're near the end of the show. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Totally agree. It's expensive. Let's see if they paid workers. Yeah, Daniel Ledo. I can imagine what Daniel Ledo is going to say. Let's see. What is fair compensation for intellectual property? As you know, Mr. Ledo, I have my own software company that over the last 8 years I've actually made it slide. In other words, I've been doing mostly political activism because a change has to be made, and I know that a change has to be made. What is the value of intellectual property? The way many would determine or classify that is whatever the market is willing to pay for it. And I don't have a problem with that. Whatever the market is willing to pay for it. In other words, if you want to pay Will Smith $20 million for a movie, so be it. But in paying $20 million for a movie, because that's what the market dictates, that has taken $20 million out of circulation into one person, right? We define what society means, and we define what money means, and we define what an economy looks like. The question is, how much of that money that Will Smith got for that $20 million should then be put back into a government who created an economy that allowed such eventualities? You know, a lot of people like to look at it, well, it's his money because that's what the people were willing to pay him. Look, this is a society, not a one-man economy. So we as a society, and I don't know what that number is, but when we reach a certain level of wealth, we ought to do sort of what was done in the past, maybe a tax of 90% on a very high income. And people, oh my God, 90%? Well, yeah. I mean, yes. The thing about it is you have to think about what it really means in the functioning of an economy. If you don't do redistribution of some sort, take that money and build some more freeways that eventually Will Smith will use and will make Will Smith getting around much better. If we don't do that, the math does not work. The math does not work, and that's why we're failed. That is why we have income and wealth inequality and disparity. The math simply does not work. You cannot have an economy where the monies constantly flow from the masses to a few, because eventually the masses become indentured servants. That's just math. And the only way to mitigate that is redistribution. People don't, the Heritage Foundation and all these guys have tried to make that a bad word. I'm trying to make it a good word again because it's the most accurate thing to say. redistribution. It doesn't mean giving somebody else's, giving Will Smith's money to a whole bunch of people who don't want to work. It means taking Will Smith money, who was gotten in an economy we created that has an aberration. Because if we could have created an economy that didn't allow that money to get transferred like that in the first place. But since that's what we have, we then mitigate that through taxation and redistribution. Look, this is not something that, this is something that must be said. And this is something I wish more economists were brave enough to say. And that is, the math does not work. The math of the current state of capitalism says that eventually all of your wealth, the wealth of the masses, will amass to the top. That's just the math. It's not an accident. It's math. Okay, let's see if I got any more here before we close the show down. Bear with me 1 second. Let's see before I close the show. Come on. But folks, and what I try to tell people when we talk about this is that you have to explain this in a manner that doesn't cripple people's implicit beliefs in what they thought we represented as a country. And that is something that we have to learn how to do. I am trying to learn how to do it myself in the most honest method possible. In other words, I want to call redistribution. I want to call taxes. I want to call taxation, honestly. But I want to be able to do all of this in a manner that doesn't scare people, in a manner that people see that it is in their vested interest that we have all these things. Before we go, I would like to remind those of you who are listening right now that this is a progressive show and we need your support. Please go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright. That is patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And consider being a supporter, consider being a subscriber to Politics Done Right. As I've always mentioned before, I don't only talk it, I don't only speak it, I also do the same. My particular rags, the rags that I support, the progressive rags that I support are the Daily Kos, Op-Ed News, Democratic Underground, KPFT, of course, which I also have a show there, and several other rags. Small donations to all these different rags. That's the only way progressive media is going to move forward. That's the only way we're going to have folks that are willing to tell the truth and are not held back by advertising, are not held back by what you can say because these particular people advertise with you. That is the only way we're going to do it. On the left, one of the biggest problems we have is the lack of support that allows us to keep this job going. If we're going to make progress, there are two things we need. We need people to vote, and we need people to support progressive outlets. We need people to support progressive candidates. So my last ask again is to become a subscriber at patreon.com/politicsdoneright. And likewise, remember to support your progressive candidates. All these things we have to do if we're really going to make a change, if we're really going to do what is necessary to turn this country around. It's not going to happen by itself. We don't need the kind of cash flow that the right needs, because when you're lying, you need a whole lot of money to convince folks. When you're telling the truth, because it's always verifiable, you don't have to spend that much. So what we ask is very small subscriber base. We need several hundreds, actually, is what we need, but several hundred small subscriber to continue and make this stuff viable. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right. Go to patreon.com/politicsdoneright and be a part of the solution. You guys have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Welcome to Politics Done Right. I am your host, Egberto Willies. This is the progressive program that will take the mystery out of politics. This is the program that will encourage you to make sure government becomes we the people. Whether you are liberal, conservative, or otherwise, you get to air your point of view. Remember, You can also send me a tweet to EGBERTOWILLIES. That is, at Egberto Willies. Let us engage. It is politics done right.